Hello class, my name is Eunice Valverde and today I will be presenting on edible drugs in America. Marijuana has a rich history. In the 1920s, newspaper articles would publish that marijuana was a connection to crime and criminal-like behavior. In 1930, Harry J. Anslinger is appointed to rule over the Federal Narcotics Bureau. Anslinger would preach on how marijuana caused insanity and psychosis. He warned people that these consumers will then commit crimes and murders. He made it his mission to get rid of all narcotics. He argued endlessly for total drug prohibition and the utmost severe punishment for offenders. Due to his speeches, many people began to see marijuana negatively. And that is how the United States attitude around marijuana was found. In 1937, the Marijuana Tax Act was passed, the US federal's first step to ban the use of the drug. It required a license to sell and tax grower, distributor, and buyer. It was very hard to conduct business after this. In 1944, the New York Academy of Medicine reported that the use of marijuana did not induce violence, insanity, sex crimes, or lead to addiction or other drugs. In 1969, Marijuana Tax Act was viewed as unconstitutional. In 1971, President Reagan declared the war on drugs. In the 1980s, use of marijuana decreased but found popularity in the 90s. In 2010, 16 states passed medical marijuana laws and 9 states have legalized recreational use. In 2020, governors are now including the legalization of marijuana on their agendas for the states which have yet to come around. The rich history, attitudes, and stigma surrounding marijuana have paved its way for accessibility. So, what are edible drugs? They're food items made out of flowers or concentrates. This can include cannabis distillate or pure cannabinoid crystals. Potency of the product relies on the method of preparation. There's 2 methods that are used. It may come with similar but separate effects. 1, it can be extracted and the dose relies on the amount of oil used, or the preparation varies on how the marijuana was compounded into the butter or oil. What happens when the edibles are ingested? Well, upon eating, the edibles go through the body and are absorbed in the gut. It is then metabolized in the liver. The remaining THC and its metabolites circulate through the heart until it reaches your brain. Edibles have a half-life, which sedates the user, but it could come with different effects. Approximately, the onset time varies from 45 minutes to 3 hours. The effects of the edibles may sedate the user for 4 to 8 hours. It is extremely potent. Some edible effects. Let me go on to the onset. Users can experience acute physiological effects of toxicity. This includes increased heart rate, chronic lung exposure, anxiety, and psychotic symptoms. Users with pre-existing cardiovascular disease may bring harm amongst themselves if they abuse the drug. Onset varies due to the consumer's age, body weight, gender, underlying diseases, and medication they're taking. If they're mixing edibles and medication, that is a huge no-no, as the THC levels could dangerously increase in a 5-fold. Due to the time it takes to feel the euphoria of the edibles, some users may consume larger amounts thinking that the edibles aren't working, or they just want to accelerate the process. Some effects of edibles include psychotic effects, hallucinations, panic attacks, paranoia, and impaired motor ability. Users who have the following health issues should avoid consuming edibles. This includes schizophrenia, anxiety, history of substance abuse, heart attacks, and high blood pressure. Before consumption, one has to remember about the safety and pureness of an edible. It depends on where you're purchasing this from or who's giving it to you. It's hard to know how strong or pure an edible is when it is crafted at home. These homemade edibles are risky as they could spread foodborne illnesses, poisoning from pesticide residues, and overdose due to improper doses, and it could also be laced with other drugs such as narcotics. One can never know. There has been no deaths associated to overdoses. One could experience an extreme level of anxiety and go to the ER. But for the most case, that's the only thing that could happen. Under the impairment of edibles, one could also commit some sort of accident where they could eat an edible cookie and walk into traffic or fall off a bridge. In some legal dispensaries, the product has been tested and has been adequately measured for the user's experience. That is why you should support your local dispensary and purchase it from a safe zone. The last thing to remember is that everybody metabolizes cannabinoids differently, so it is up to the user to know their limits. This is a picture of the targeted audience. 48% of marijuana users are older, while 52% of marijuana users are millennials. There is really no specified targeted age for the use of marijuana or edibles, but younger people are at risk. In 2015, the Monitoring the Future survey showed that the usage of marijuana is now exceeding the daily use of tobacco cigarettes among 12th graders. This is dangerous as the brain does not fully develop until you reach the age of 25. 40% of the 12th graders reported having consumed edibles in medical marijuana states, while 26% consumed them in non-medical marijuana states. In the journal of Schizophrenia, research was published stating that among the several studies that were conducted, there has been a link between adolescent cannabis use and schizophrenia. This shows irreversible schizophrenia or psychosis. There is a stronger link if the user has these genetic risks in their family. In a survey conducted by Yahoo, 52% of the country's 55 million marijuana users are millennials. The other 48 are older. When they were asked about their personal use, 25% of the millennials felt guilty about using, while 17% of the older population stated that they felt the same. It is still considered taboo to some people, and they have a hard time saying that their use is for fun. In this next slide, we see why people use marijuana. We have to relax, pain relief, to have fun, to be social, to be creative, to improve sex, to sleep, and other. The Yahoo survey found that 16% claimed to use marijuana for fun, 37% said they use it to relax, 19% use it for pain relief, and lastly, the 10% use it for socializing. To conclude, when used responsibly, edibles may be breaking new ground in the medical field. According to the National Institute on Drug Abuse, the common use for edibles are for medical purposes like pain relief. It can also help improve the user's appetite, nausea, inflammation, and it can reduce the symptoms of chronic illnesses, cancer symptoms, and anxiety. Unlike smoking marijuana, edibles have not been shown to affect lung health or simulate a cancer risk. Eating it eliminates the toxic chemicals that smoking would have created, like carbon monoxide, bronchial irritants, and tumor initiators. This may soon change, as the long-term health implications of consuming edibles are still unknown. Most research is surrounded around smoking. Nevertheless, ingesting the edibles is likely to be safer than the alternative. Marijuana has come a long way throughout history. It has faced adversities and has been able to carry on by the natural remedies it could provide. Users come from all backgrounds and have their own personal reasons as why they consume. It may be medical or recreational. As we progress, marijuana will take shape in different forms. We already have edibles which come in cookies, gummies, and they may even come in a drinkable form. The usage is becoming acceptable, and it has created new forms of employment. There are now cannabis restaurants in Los Angeles and New York. Who would have thought? It's ironic, as this would have been unacceptable and banned by Anslinger and Reagan. It would have come with penalties, fines, jail time. There is an undervalued appreciation of the culture surrounding this theme, as it has broken many barriers. The use of edibles will continue to thrive as it becomes legal in countries around the world. It is now up to the users to ingest and act responsibly. And this concludes my presentation. The following slide is my reference page. These are all the articles I use, an interesting read if anyone else wants to get informed. And that is all. Stay safe, wash your hands, and stay sane. Thank you.